Kirana admired the beautiful silver rune short sword as she and Ren walked down the trail. She had managed to grab it off the ground when Lecter had dropped it in his agony during their escape from Farkon. Ren didn't seem to have noticed, or if he hadn't brought up the fact that she'd stolen it. It had been 2 days since they had left Farkon now. They were headed north towards the port city of Pota, but it would be a few weeks before they reached it by foot, and the roads would take them through a few other towns and the city of Rastok first. Kirana was looking forward to staying the night in a cozy inn in Rastok as she and Ren set up camp for the night. "Ren, can you set up the fire tonight?" "Sure thing." Ren smiled as he removed his swords and began rummaging through his bag. Kirana looked at the swords. She'd had more time to get a good look at them now, and Ren was shockingly knowledgeable about the capabilities and history of each weapon despite his lack of knowledge on basically every other subject. The massive sword was an ancient relic known as the Blood Baron. It had been used by angel generals throughout history, as far back as the Angelic War against the Dwarves, the Angelian Civil War, and all 3 Cruciates. It had been brought to the Western continent during the Second Cruciate when the Angels culled much of the elven population. It was lost to the Kirihishas many years later when the Angels had attempted to seize Baraka, at the time a sovereign nation under the rule of the Kirihisha family. The sword itself was probably 7 feet long and 2 feet wide, a dull gray blade with a single edge, though even the sharpened side was so worn by time and tattered with nicks and scratches that you could scarcely call it sharp at all. Apparently it was really more of an ornamental piece that the angel generals had used for intimidation, as it took such great strength to wield it properly, though Ren seemed to heft it around with ease. The sword he kept on his right hip, wrapped in cloth, was a double-edged longsword with a blood-red blade known as the Venom Fang. Legend told that it was forged out of the tooth of a giant poisonous snake, though who knows how true the tale is. Regardless of its origin, the blade had the ability to corrode and poison any living thing it touched. Ren didn't like to use it due to the brutal nature of its abilities and his disdain for killing. And finally was his katana. It had a slim, pitch-black blade, and even Kirana had heard of this sword. It was the Cursed Demon's Sword, an heirloom of the Kirihisha family, one of the 2 swords crafted for Finian Kirihisha that he had wielded in most all of his many adventures. It was said to be sharp enough to cleave a mountain in 2, unbreakable, had the ability to alter its size and form to combat giants or dragons, and even lend its power to other weapons, making its mere existence on a battlefield able to turn the tides of war. Personally, Kirana thought a lot of that sounded like nonsense, but she had to admit she'd seen it change its size when Ren had sliced off Lecter's wing while he was in midair, and she didn't really have another explanation for it. So at least some of the legends had to be true, right? Even after spending 2 days with Ren, she wasn't sure what to make of him. He somehow seemed to know almost nothing about his own family history, despite them being a household name the world over. The Kirihishas were a dynasty descended from Finian Kirihisha, the kind of folk hero that had so many outlandish stories about him that it was impossible to tell fact from fiction. He's hailed in angel history as having quelled a dwarven rebellion, tamed a rampaging dragon, and defeated an orc chieftain in unarmed single combat and becoming a chieftain himself. But he was also a folk hero in demon culture, and he's been given the title of Daimyo of Baraka. At the time, Baraka was ruled by the demon home country of Damaru, and ultimately was the one who declared Baraka to be a sovereign nation. He was told of in history of both eastern and western continents, even though he had lived thousands of years before the first recorded contact between the 2. After Finian, though, his lineage didn't just sit on their laurels. The Kirihishas became known for producing some of the most powerful heroes and also the most terrifying villains. It wasn't like they had any particular supernatural powers, it was more like every one of them seemed destined for greatness in one way or another. Wherever they walked, the world changed. Eventually, they did cede Baraka to the nation of Alkan, but even out of power, they became wandering heroes until a few generations ago when they seemed to quietly disappear. And yet here she finds someone claiming to be a modern-day Kirihisha with no knowledge of just what exactly that means. Kirana found herself staring at Ren as he produced a couple of sticks and twine from his bag and began to roll them together atop the firewood. She looked at him quizzically. "What are you doing?" "I'm starting the fire." "Yeah, but why don't you just use magic? It'd be faster." "Oh, I can't use magic. But don't worry, it should only take a second." Sure enough, the fire had caught quickly. He couldn't use magic? Huh. So he is a Semviolite. Or Semv, for short. That explained how he'd been able to shrug off Lecter's magic attacks like they were nothing. Semviolism was a rare condition in which a person either couldn't use magic at all or has a limited capacity for magic. Generally, those unable to use magic had higher resistance to magic, though Kirana was no scholar, so she didn't know much more than that. She let it be, and the 2 cooked their dinner at the campfire before laying down for the night. The next morning, when Ren and Kirana returned to the road, they were surprised to see what appeared to be a traveler sitting on a stump on the roadside. Kirana paid him no mind, but Ren, ever friendly, just had to speak up. "Hey there, stranger." Ren smiled broadly. "You headed the same way as us?" The stranger stood up. He wore a long brown cloak, the hood covering his face, and a long sword at his hip. His hands were clad in white gloves, and Kirana noticed a magic circle on the back of his right-hand glove. He removed his hood to reveal a mop of straight blue hair and pointed ears, marking him as an elf. His left eye was green, while his right eye was blue. He had a serious expression. "Not going anywhere, actually. I'm exactly where I need to be. I work for Marcello the Blade, head of the Knife Ears Mercenary Company. He backs Lecter's operation in Farkon. I was visiting on business when Lecter came crying to me about a pair of adventurers who had cut off his wing. While personally I despised the man, it did fall into my duties as a mercenary to track down and kill the two of you on his behalf." Kirana had heard of the Knife Ear Mercenary Company before. It was an all-elf mercenary group that had taken the racial slur and turned it into a badge of honor. It was odd to her that they would have backed an angel-led crime syndicate. She figured they would have had bad blood with angels, but if they were mercenaries, maybe coin was more important to them than the sordid history between the two races. Kirana looked the man up and down. He didn't seem to have any malice towards them. He was just a man doing his job. He even had the common courtesy to explain the situation to them instead of ambushing them. "Okay, if you're here to kill us, why wait patiently for us to wake up and find you? And why explain all of this to us? I feel like most assassins would have just slit our throats in our sleep, since you clearly knew where we were." The mercenary sighed. "I may be working as assassin currently, but merciless murder is hardly a passion of mine. If I'm going to end a life, I prefer it to be the end of a fair fight. Ambushing someone while they're sleeping would leave a bad taste in my mouth." He drew his sword. "But we've had enough talk. I do still have a job to do." Kirana couldn't help but smile. The gentleman assassin. How polite of you. She looked at Ren. "All right, bodyguard, earn your keep. I choose you, Ren. Use big sword, slashy slash attack." Ren wasn't sure what she was talking about, but he took that as a cue to fight. He drew his massive sword and entered a combat stance. "I'm not really following what's going on, but I think I heard that you're an ass man. Personally, I think it's personality that matters most when looking for a partner, though." Kirana and the mercenary looked at Ren like he was crazy. How was he this lost? The mercenary coughed to stop himself from laughing. I'm going to attack you now." Without another word, the mercenary had dashed at Ren in a flash. He was incredibly fast, almost too fast for Ren to defend himself, barely able to lift his blade in time to block the attack. The mercenary's sword glanced off of Ren's bloodbaron, and the man brought his other hand around to fire off a spell into Ren's face, engulfing him in flames. Apparently, Lecter had informed the mercenary about Ren's magic resistance, because he was shocked when Ren didn't even flinch and brought the massive sword around in a powerful slash. The mercenary was able to recover quickly enough to dodge the attack and put some distance between the two. He quickly dashed at Ren again with blinding speed. Once again, Ren barely blocked in time. This time, though, rather than stop, the mercenary slipped behind Ren and dashed again. This time at his back, Ren was barely able to turn quickly enough to block again. The mercenary repeated this over and over. He was unable to land a decisive hit, but Ren didn't have time to go on the offensive either. It was a stalemate of sorts. Then Kirana noticed the man was touching the ground with his free right hand every time he changed direction. "Ren!" Kirana called out to him, but it was too late. The mercenary had been using magic to minutely alter the terrain while distracting Ren with flashy attacks, and Ren found himself tripping over a trough that had suddenly appeared on the ground beneath his feet. The mercenary dashed again, and this time Ren wouldn't be able to block in time. But Ren dropped his massive sword and fell back on his hands, bringing his leg up to kick the sword out of the mercenary's hand. As the mercenary retreated to retrieve his lost blade, Ren got up and dusted himself off. "Man, you're fast! I totally picked the wrong sword for this one. I'm glad I have a second to switch up my strategy here." But the mercenary wasn't about to give him time to draw another sword. He dashed at him again, but in a flash, Ren had drawn his katana and easily cleaved the mercenary's sword in two. Startled, the mercenary leapt backwards, waving his right hand and casting several icy spears between them, but Ren leapt forward and quickly sliced them to pieces. Matching the mercenary's speed now that he wasn't weighed down by the gargantuan sword, the mercenary grabbed Ren by the wrist of his sword arm to stop him from swinging and sent a powerful jolt of electricity through him. But Ren was practically unfazed. He grabbed the mercenary by the shoulder with his free hand and slammed their foreheads together, causing the mercenary to reel backwards and fall to the ground. Ren quickly brought his sword to the mercenary's throat and stood over him, smiling. The mercenary looked back in shock, and then his face softened. "You've won. My life is forfeit to you. You are a worthy foe. I won't lament being slain by you." Ren looked at him quizzically. "Why would I kill you? I actually had a lot of fun just now. But fighting isn't fun if lives are on the line, then it's just scary." Ren pulled his sword away and offered his hand to the man. Kirana put her hand on her sword in case he tried to strike at Ren, but he seemed to have resigned himself to the loss. "I've failed my mission here. If you don't kill me, then Marcelo will do it himself. One way or another, I'll die. I'd rather it be in combat than at the end of a noose." "Well, tough luck, buddy, because I'm not going to kill you. Please, just get it over with. Stop begging me to kill you. It's weird." "Oh my God, you are so overdramatic," Kirana cut in. "My life is forfeit because I failed my mission. Let me die with honor. Blah, blah, blah. Get over yourself." The man was taken aback by her harsh words. "I've had to lie, cheat, and steal my whole life to survive. Where I come from, you have a chance to live, you damn well take it. Honestly, I find it insulting that you would just choose to die for no good reason. If you don't plan on using your perfectly good life, then give it to somebody trying to desperately claw their way out of the gutter." The man looked down, ashamed of himself. "I've done things I'm not proud of. Ended lives for coin. I don't deserve the kindness you're showing me." "Everyone deserves a second chance," Ren smiled. "Life's tricky like that. Sometimes good people do bad things, and sometimes bad people do good things. But everybody has the potential to put more good in the world if they keep on living. That's why I don't believe in killing people. I know you said your boss will kill you for failing, but I don't see Marshmallow the Blade around here anywhere, so all you gotta do is stay out of his way. I've only been a bodyguard for 2 days, but so far Kirana's body has been pretty well guarded, so if you'd like to stick with us, maybe I could guard your body too. You don't even gotta pay me. I'll just ask that in exchange you guard my body back." Kirana wanted to argue with Ren that he couldn't just invite assassins to join their group without consulting her, but something about Ren's innocent smile made her hold her tongue. Besides, she didn't hate this guy. She could tell he was a good person at heart who had lost his way. She had enough experiences with bad people in her life to tell the difference between someone who was truly evil and one who just needed some help. "Join you? How can you possibly trust that I wouldn't try to kill you again later on to get back in my employer's good graces?" "I can't. But I think you're a good person, so I choose to believe in you anyway." The mercenary couldn't help but laugh. Finally, he took the hand Ren extended to him. "I suppose, if you're really both okay with it, maybe I will take your offer. Thank you for giving me a second chance at life." "So what do we call you, mystery man?" Kirana asked. "My name is Haru. Haru Kiniro," he said with a slight bow. Kirana smiled at him. "Welcome to the team, Haru." Thank you so much for listening to A Dragon with Feathery Wings episode 2. I had a script this time, and I think that sounded a lot better. So going forward, I'll definitely be writing scripts for every episode. I also experimented a little with a sound effect, which I haven't actually done the editing on it yet. I recorded the sound effect. I hope that actually makes it in the episode, or else I'm going to sound like a crazy person. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I have the intention of trying new things and hopefully making each episode better than the last. So if you enjoyed this, feel free to leave a like. And if you want to see where Ren, Kirana, and now Haru as well go on their adventures, hit subscribe so you see next time I upload an episode. I also stream on twitch.tv/Chaos of Greed. Totally different situation there. Just gameplay, nothing narrative like this. But if you are into that kind of thing, feel free to give me a follow there as well. If not, that's totally fine too. Have a fantastic day.